Let's take a look at the new tank rating system I have developed. It took me approximately 3 dark ages to draw this table, but now I can use it over and over again. Here is a short explanation of my system. A tank's effectiveness can be determined by taking a look at the survivability, the mobility, the firepower, the ability to spot targets and the ability to use the firepower, i.e. flexibility. A tank can get up to 10 points in each one of the categories. 1 point means worst in class and 10 points mean best in class, compared to similar vehicles of the same tier. These values are what I think is appropriate and not scientifically accurate, because there is no way to decide on whether higher damage or better accuracy etc. is better in general, because of the amount of RNG in the game. Also, there is an overall tank rating. A tank can get a maximum of 10 Hero of the Soviet Union medals and a minimum of 1. These represent how effective a tank is, or how much fun it is to play. Now let's get into the action. Hello my fellow dogs of war. Today I'm going to teach you plebs on how to use the HMS Black Prince to the fullest of its potential. The Black Prince is a tier 7 British heavy tank that a lot of people can't get to work because the tank is terrible. I mean they are bad players. One of the first things to note is that unlike other frustrating things like Dark Souls, the Black Prince does not get less frustrating over time, because you learn how to play it, because it is not the player limiting the tank, but the tank limiting the player. Now, let's apply my new tank rating system to the Black Prince. Armor. Does this tank have any armor to speak of? Not really, at least when you consider that 150mm of armor will most likely get penetrated by 144mm of penetration, because of the insane 25% RNG on penetration. Taking a look at the armor model, we can see that the entirety of the frontal hull ranges from 149mm to 152mm effective strength, which is about the average penetration of tier 6 medium tanks. Also, there is an angled frontal plate that has about 135mm of protection, and if your enemies are even slightly above you the shells will not bounce. The frontal turret comes with a very solid gun mantlet and armor values mostly far beyond 200mm. However, this is a British tank, and not a Russian one, so it has a cupola that is pretty cheesy, and the frontal turret has some very weak 150mm to 180mm zones. The side armor seems to be pretty good at first glance, however there are two massive problems it gives you. First, the engine does not have any protection at all, and can get overmatched by all guns with more than 76.2mm in caliber. Second, the primary side armor of this tank is not the layer that forms the hull with the fighting compartment, but the plates covering up the tracks and suspension. This makes it almost impossible to side scrape, because if you put the tank at an angle you expose the frontal part of the casemate on your side. While the side armor is at a ricochet angle, the frontal part of the side armor can still get penetrated easily. Combine these things and what you get is a tank with media-core frontal armor that cannot be angled properly, and thus does not reach over 150mm of frontal protection. Expect to get penetrated at least 60% of the time by anything with more than 140mm of penetration. The only way to protect yourself from incoming fire is by sitting in a hull down position, only exposing your turret, and hoping that your enemies will not hit your cupola. The tank gets a decent 1450 hit points. For me, the Black Prince gets 6 out of 10 points in the armor category. Mobility. To make a long story short, it is terrible. The top speed is a ridiculous 20 km/h, but the effective traverse speed, which Wargaming does not show us in game, is most surprisingly higher than on the Oni, the Tiger I and the T-29. The other good thing is that you get a very nice 31 degrees per second of turret traverse. Still, it is the slowest tier 7 heavy tank by quite a margin, and thus it will get just 1 out of 10 points in the mobility category. Flexibility. The tank has a decent 8 degrees of gun depression over most of the front. The dispersion values on turning the hull and on moving are the best on any tier 7 heavy tank by quite a bit. However, it has a terrific 0.19 dispersion on turret traverse, which is about 11% worse than on the T-29, and about 21% worse than on the Joseph Stalin. This means that it is quite hard to quickly engage targets after turning the turret. Clearly, Wargaming did this in order not to make the Black Prince too strong. Also, this makes sense, because a 105mm or a 122mm gun is a lot heavier than a 76.2mm gun, and thus has better stabilization and such. There is less need for re-aiming the gun. For me, this is a 5 out of 10 in the flexibility category. Firepower. Well, so far this tank has not done all too well, has it? When taking a look at the firepower, it starts to get really ugly indeed. Although the Black Prince is equipped with the same 76.2mm gun the tier 6 Firefly gets, it does not get a better rate of fire. The DPM is on the lower end for a tier 7 heavy tank at 1877. But the biggest problem is the alpha damage of just 150. It is not enough to trade properly, yet the rate of fire is so low you can't use it to tear people apart, like you can in the Tiger 1. When fully aimed, the gun is rather accurate at .34, but as I mentioned before, the dispersion values hinder the tank way too much for it to use all of its media core amount of DPM. Thus, I think it has the worst armament on any tier 7 heavy in the game, and that is why it gets only 1 out of 10 points. Spotting. The view range on the Black Prince is a good 370, which is better than what most tier 7 heavy tanks get, so it gets 8 out of 10 points in this category. The camo value is pretty much the same as for any other tier 7 heavy, but as this is a heavy tank, I will not take the camo values into consideration, unless they are high enough to come even close to competing with mediums. But how to get the most out of this tank? To be honest, this is the easiest way: buy the 5500 gold package, because that equals the amount of free experience you will need to unlock the caravan right away, and leave you with a nice pile of extra gold for further use. Now press right click on your Black Prince and select sell vehicle. Now enter the correct number and buy a caravan right away. For those of you who are in search of a challenge, are masochists, or who cannot afford the gold, here is the painful way of doing it. If for some reason you have managed to get your hands on a 100% crew for this tank, select Sixth Sense for your commander and repairs for everyone else. Should you ever reach your second skill, take useful things like smooth ride, snapshot and situational awareness. Nobody is ever going to reach the third skill on the Black Prince, so I won't bother telling you to then drop 4 puppies in arms. Buy vertical stabilizers and improved ventilation for 600,000 credits each, and a large caliber gun rammer for just 500,000 credits, because lol 76.2mm large caliber confirmed. These equipment pieces are worth more than the whole tank, but you can demount and use them for the Caravan and the Conqueror as well later on. Take a healthy amount of APCR with you, because your gun sucks and has just 171mm of penetration. One of the most important things to consider when playing the Black Prince is your state of mind. Always be positive, because otherwise you are going to feel like playing Dark Souls 3 for the first time ever at 11 o'clock in the evening while drunk, and go insane within minutes. In game, plan accordingly to your map and matchup. In low tier games, which you will hardly ever get because LAL's matchmaking got fixed, try to find a flank where you can charge at your preferably lower tiered enemy and crush them. In high tier games instead, either try to follow heavy tanks leading the charge and support them by tracking or using your skill rounds to penetrate higher tiered tanks, unless you meet one of the new power creep tanks, in which case you can go fluff yourself. Also, you can sit around and observe your map to see how the game develops, because if you followed your team you were never able to get back in time to defend the base. Use your highly lol accurate lol sniping lol gun for providing long range support fire, because your .34 accuracy matters so much in this game, after Wargaming decided to nerf every gun's accuracy in the game. Most of the time you will have to watch as your teammates farm the damage, and you won't be able to participate in the endgame damage farm, because you are too slow. Your goal is to do anything, even if that means keeping a tier 9 heavy tank tracked for a whole minute, just to get 240 assistance damage. Congratulations. You have now unlocked a crappy tier 8 heavy tank that is going to get buffed massively in the next patch. So what is the overall rating for the Black Prince? I think it deserves a total of 2 Hero of the Soviet Union medals, because it can sometimes be effective when sitting hull down. Still, it is probably one of the most painful experiences I have ever had playing World of Tanks. Thank you for wasting your time by watching this crappy video about this crappy tank. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you did, so then please consider giving me a like down below. See you on the battlefield, my fellow dog of war.